Welcome back. The newly approved Employment Services Amendment Bill and the National Labour Migration Policy have introduced employment quotas for foreign nationals across key sectors. The changes are aimed at balancing economic growth with job opportunities for locals, impacting employers in industries like agriculture, hospitality and construction. Now, as the deadline for compliance approaches, employers are advised to review their policy. So this is a very important conversation. To discuss this further, we're now joined by a senior associate at the Employment Law Practice, Leigh Masuku. Leigh, good morning. Welcome to eNCA. As I said, an important conversation specifically for employers as well. What would the most significant changes that business need to know about in this bill be?
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Jenna-Leigh, and welcome to all the viewers. So the National Employment Labour Migration Policy is South Africa's first comprehensive rights-based and development-orientated framework, and it's aimed at managing labour migration both into and out of South Africa. And it aims to ensure fair, orderly and regular labour migration, but also to protect all workers' rights, including the rights of migrant workers within South Africa, as well as South Africa abroad. And it seems to achieve its goals by providing clear guidelines for government departments for compliance, improving governance and coordination, and data collection, policy making, and as I said, the fair protection of social protection of migrant workers. So what the National Labour Migration Policy also does is that it introduces the potential amendments to the Employment Services Act through the Employment Services Amendment Bill. And the Employment Services Amendment Bill then gives backbone to the labour migration policy by expanding certain definitions in the current version of the Employment Services Act and expanding its operation to employment services or private employment agencies not for gain, digital labor platforms, and includes all workers, including informal and platform-based workers, which is where we see potential issues with enforcement of foreign national requirements or the hiring of foreign nationals. So perhaps what the most significant from the Employment Services Bill, as you've rightly mentioned up front, Jenna-Leigh, is that there is a proposal to give the Minister of Employment and Labour the ability to impose quotas for the hiring of foreign nationals in certain sectors, key sectors, such as agriculture, construction, hospitality and tourism, and also there's a proposal to have the Department of Employment and Labour work together with the Department of Home Affairs to enforce immigration laws through giving the labour inspectors enforcement powers and the ability to impose fines on non-compliant employers.
Leigh, just very quickly, let's perhaps break down these quotas just a bit for our viewers. These proposed quotas affecting some of the key sectors that you just mentioned, in terms of percentages from what you see, what are we talking about here?
So we're at a very early stage at the moment, Jenna-Leigh. The bill is currently been approved for sending by Cabinet to send off to Parliament, but there has been no determination of the quotas as such yet. That it only gives the Minister of Employment and Labour the power to do so, through various publication and consultation in public formats, but there's no percentages that have been set out as yet in terms of the quotas that would apply.
Thank you so much for that clarity there, Leigh. One have to ask as well, what protections would exist for companies that do rely on critical skills from abroad?
So both the National Labour Migration Policy and the Employment Services Amendment Bill place significant emphasis on the concept of critical skills, because they understand that it is a cornerstone for managing labour migration and employment in South Africa. And what the policy does is that it identifies the attraction and retention of critical skills as a national priority to deal with the skill shortages and support economic growth. And How it proposes this to work is for the Department of Higher Education and Training to identify and update critical skills lists on a more regular basis, which would then require interdepartmental collaboration between the Higher Education Department, the Employment and Labour Department, and the Department of Home Affairs to align immigration and labour strategies with critical skills demand, so that there's a harmonization of the qualifications that are required to facilitate the employment of foreign nationals in South Africa with critical skills.
Well, as you said, still early stages at this time, Lee, so I am assuming that there might still be a lot of debates around the just how constitutional some of these quotas are, how do they align with existing labor and immigration law as well. But as we wrap up, practically speaking, how should businesses begin preparing now to remain compliant and perhaps also continue to monitor the legislative process unfolding from here?
So what employers should do is firstly start planning based on their operational needs. How many foreign nationals do you really need employed in your organization? And what this will require is the conducting of workplace audits and identifying areas of work where critical skills are required. And then you need to put training in place to improve skill shortages among South Africans within your organization. Once this is done, what employers can do is look at their hiring and recruitment practices to see if there's any gaps that they need to address. And obviously, this is all to plan for the eventual quota system that may be imposed once the Employment Services Bill is enacted. So then employers can demonstrate their compliance with the quotas, prioritize the recruitment of South Africans, and ensure that foreign hires are in occupations that have been identified as being in high demand or on critical skillsness, and where there are no South Africans available to fill those positions.
Right. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. We'll certainly continue this conversation as the process unfolds. That was Senior Associate in the Employment Law Practice at Cliff Decker Hofmeyr, Lee Masuku.